Welcome to the Dog Dialectic. I am your host, Ashley Jacobson of Airborne Canine Dog Training, and today we are going to be talking about how to get started tracking. So, before we get started, we've been MIA for quite a while, and so I'm really looking forward to getting back into the swing of things. We have been posting a lot of written media, blog posts, articles. We've had a few of our articles posted in magazines, Sport Dog magazines, DBG America, and some others. So, check those out. They're available on our website, airbornecanine.com. But a lot of great information in there, things about pet dog stuff, home management, sport dog skills, different types of activities you can do. But if you're interested and you've been missing out on some of our content and you wanted to get caught up, that's a great way to do it. Ideally, I want to hopefully double tap some of these topics with a podcast topic and then also have an article, because I know some people prefer to read, some people prefer to listen, others prefer to watch. So if we can help everybody, that would be the best, but we do the best we can. We're a small organization here. I'm just one person, and we have a lot of great people here, but we also, we're also training dogs, so that always comes first. All right, so that being said, let's get started. I don't want to do too much admin, too much housekeeping. I just want to get right into it. So if you've ever, been out walking your dog and just seen them sniffing the ground, following the scent of something and thought to yourself, man, I thought my dog would be amazing at tracking, you might be right. And the thing is, your dog might really want to follow that scent of that bunny rabbit or a deer that walked by recently or some other prey animal that they think smells really good. But the challenging part is taking that instinct, that skill that is naturally built into their genetics, and using that and manipulating it to our goals for them. So taking something that they love doing it and then changing it so that they want to search for what we want them to search for. And in the vast majority of contexts, that's going to be human odor. So when we are doing canine tracking, they are searching or following the scent of a person, meaning they're following the path that a person traveled. Now, there are a few other contexts where, people train dogs to find lost animals. So you can train a dog to find, if your pet wanders away, if your dog gets lost or your cat gets lost, you can teach a dog to follow that specific odor. And you can do that using, scent articles that have a specific pet's odor on it. So you can provide that scent article and then the dog goes, okay, I'm going to find the scent path associated with this specific animal. We're going to talk about how we do that today a little bit. But mostly today we're going to talk about how we do it with human odor specifically. We're not going to get into the animal side of things. That is not our forte here. So in the world of working dogs and the world of sport dogs, canine sports like, working dog sports, your IGP, your Schutzhund, IPO, American Schutzhund, PSA, ring sports, KMPV, which isn't really a sport, but semantics, right? All of those originated from the necessity to have a breed certification, a breed standard, a breed standardization tool to test these dogs to do specific skills. And so probably the most notable sport that tests dogs' tracking ability currently and the most common is IGP, which was formerly IPO, which was formerly Schutzhund. And I know they get a lot of crap for changing their name every few years, but it's been IGP for a while now, so I think we're good. But regardless, IGP has 3 phases. I know we've talked about it in previous episodes before, but one of those phases, the first phase, is tracking. So phase A, they call it, is tracking. And tracking is involved in the 3 competitive levels of IGP. And, the competitive levels are IGP 1, 2, and 3. The reason why we refer to those as the competitive levels is because there is what's called the BH. It's like your entry level, but there's no tracking in it. There's no protection in it. It's more of just like a temperament test, and you really don't get a score. It's pass fail. But regardless, the reason why I want to talk about that is because in today's topic on tracking, we're primarily going to talk about IGP-style tracking and the methods that have been most commonly associated with teaching IGP-style tracking. Now, there is no one right way to teach just about anything. There are ways that are better. And, I would never say that I'm the best tracker. I am not. But I am willing to give you my information that I have on tracking for free. So take it for what it is. Am I pretty good at it? I'm pretty good at it, I think. I don't know. I'm teaching my dog. He's not naturally good at tracking, and so it's been a little bit of an uphill battle. And I think taking a dog who's not inherently genetically predisposed to being very good at tracking and getting them to a point where they're able to do it proficiently, I think that helps build you as a trainer, and it helps build your tool set. Whereas if you take dogs who are really genetically built for that type of skill, and this is something like German Shepherds specifically, every time I have a German Shepherd come out to tracking club and they come out and they do tracking for the first time, it looks like they've been doing it their entire lives. They just look so natural tracking. And I'm just like, I hate you, because my dog has been doing this for years and still looks like a hot mess some days. So, like I said, there's a big portion of it that's genetics. It's a big portion of it that, there is a natural, inherent, some dogs are just better at tracking. Like, there is no question that your hounds are going to be much better at tracking odor than your cattle dogs necessarily, right? Or your chihuahuas. There's just a genetic component that is going to make some breeds much better at it than others. And so when we look at the sport of IGP, specifically, IGP was originally created as a breed certification test, or it's like a breeding suitability test for German Shepherds back in 1901, I believe. And it tested tracking, obedience and control, and then their protection abilities. And so the tracking that occurs in IGP for the levels 1, 2, and 3 is on soft surface. So when we say soft surface, we're talking grass. It can be on dirt, but it's not really going to be on hard gravel necessarily. It's not really going to be on really hard rock. It's not going to be on pavement. It's going to be generally on grassy fields. Usually when we're looking for tracking fields, we're looking for pretty grassy fields. We don't really want grass that's super, super tall, up to our waist or anything crazy like that. I've seen tracking fields where the grass is up to maybe knee height. That's fine. I prefer to find grass that's really short, because I think that challenges the dog, because we'll talk about how the odor moves a little bit later. But it's a pretty isolated vision of what tracking is. And some people look at it as not realistic. And the thing is, it's a sport, right? It's not necessarily entirely supposed to be realistic. It's supposed to be a breeding assessment, meaning, can the dog track? Is the dog naturally capable of tracking? Now, the sport inherently is not just open to German Shepherds, it's open to all breeds. And so any breed can learn how to track and go out and compete and earn a tracking title. But it's just to see hey, is the dog able to do the activity, able to do the skill. So what we're going to be talking about here today is teaching a dog to track on soft surfaces generally for IGP style tracking. Now we're going to talk about what I mean when I say IGP style tracking. We'll talk a little bit about the different types of tracking. So tracking is a really useful skill for dogs to know in the military and law enforcement fields because it's helpful when a dog is able to follow the track and path that someone has traveled, essentially. Imagine police have chased a suspect and have lost where they've gone. And now you can bring out your canine, and the canine can follow the path that that person traveled and followed them all the way to where they might be hiding. And that can be super helpful. Or maybe you can use a dog to help find someone who's missing, like in search and rescue. So tracking can be really helpful in a lot of the working dog fields. Law enforcement, military, search and rescue, you name it. And so tracking is a fantastic skill to teach your dog. It can also be really helpful for your dog at home, even if you don't have a working dog. When you have a young dog who maybe struggles with a little bit of confidence issues, tracking is a really great way to teach your dog confidence, being able to work independently, being able to use their instincts and tap into their natural genetics. Tracking odor is a very natural skill that all dogs have in them somewhere from their ancestors. Wolves today, but in the past generations of our dogs that we have in our homes, used to track down deer and follow herds of their prey and would track down and follow their meals until they got to them sometimes. And so it's something that is genetically baked into them. So being able to tap into that can be something that really helps your dog feel more confident if they learn how to use those skills. So that being said, like I said, we're going to talk about soft surface tracking, primarily tracking on grass. When you're first getting started, there are, in my limited experience, there's two paths I have personally taken with teaching tracking. When I first started, I was part of an IGP training club, and I was just learning from the people around me what I should be doing. And the first thing we did was what we kind of call trenching the track, where you walk your track and you really kind of like drag your feet and you really dig your feet in and like kind of like dig up basically these two little trenches where your feet are. All the while you're doing that, you're placing bits and pieces of food all the way while you're digging up those trenches where your feet go along your track. And you're starting like with really short tracks, like maybe 10 to 15 feet. And we call these like puppy tracks or beginner tracks. Now, when you're picking places to start doing this, you're looking for places that I like to call virgin grass, meaning no one has walked on it that day, or ideally no one's walked on it in several days, ideally. The longer that it's been since people have walked on it, the better. So you want the grass very virgin, you want it very clean, you don't want people who have been walking and traipsing on it all day. You want it very virgin so that the only human odor on that piece of grass is your odor. So basically, you go on there, you trench your little 10-foot track, and then you walk around away from where you put that track. You go get your dog, you come back to where your track begins, and then you let your dog eat every single piece of food off of that track. And ideally, you don't want your dog to skip any pieces of food. So you're going to hold your dog either by a harness or a flat collar or something to let them eat every single piece of food. Now, in the first stages, they're just coming out and they're just eating a bunch of food off the ground. Are they really thinking about human odor? No, they're not. They're like going, oh, wow, this is really fun. I come out, there's a bunch of really tasty food out here and I eat it. This is great. That's fine. That's what we want them to think in the first few, right? What's going to happen is in these first few, we're taking them out and we're going to really, really micromanage them. We're going to hold them so they can't go off the track. We want them to just eat every little bit of piece of food that is on that track. And whether they know it or not, while they're eating that food, they are actually inhaling the human odor that is there. Are they getting really imprinted in that first or second track? Not really. Maybe like a 1%, if that. But it's not the point of the first few tracks. We're establishing the positive association with the routine, right? We're setting up a tracking routine for our dog. We're setting up, hey, when I put on this piece of equipment, when you see this setup, when we do this cue, right? When we do this, it means there's going to be a bunch of food on the ground, and your job is go out and find that food on the ground and eat it, right? We want our dog to know there's going to be rewards on the ground. Your job is to find them and eat them. That's it, okay? As we progress, maybe by 3, 4, 5 of these little baby tracks in, what I like to do is I like to let the dog do a little bit more work on their own, which means I'm not going to hold them to the track entirely. I'm not going to micromanage them. I'm not going to strictly hold them tight to the track. I'm going to let them veer a little bit off the track one way or the other, because what they will begin to discover is when they veer off to one side, all of a sudden the food stops. When they veer off to the other side, all of a sudden the food stops. The food only exists where the human odor exists. And so if we look back into some of our old podcast episodes, we talked about operant conditioning, in classical conditioning, we can positively associate positive reinforcement with staying on the human odor. When the dog is on the human odor, the dog is positively reinforced. When the dog leaves the human odor, the dog is negatively punished because the dog no longer gets rewarded, right? Super simple operant conditioning at its finest, ideally. Some dogs are a little stupid. Takes many repetitions for them to figure this one out. So what we will do is we'll talk about how we progress in a way that's also going to continue to promote this, because this is not the end all be all of tracking. This is just like step 2, right? Of like 37 steps, if not 50 steps, who knows? Okay, we're still looking at, 10 to 15, maybe we're getting up to maybe 20 feet tracks, like the length of a room, if that, right? I think this room is maybe 20 feet long. And so, yeah, maybe. I don't know. So we're looking at really baby tracks. When we're thinking about what we're building up to for like an IGP-1 track, which is the first track, an IGP-1 track is 300 paces, and a pace is roughly about 3 feet, maybe. And so we're looking at about 900 feet long. So we're right now at 20 feet. We get a ways to go. But don't worry, these are the hardest ones. We want to take our time with these tracks. Creating the positive association with the behavior is super, super important. We want our dog coming out super, super excited, okay? So one of the things I also like to do that I forgot to mention is at the end of this little baby track, right? This little 20-foot track, when we're at the end of where we do our trenching, I do like to add like a pile of food, like a slightly bigger pile of food where the dog can sit there and eat it for a while. And then I actually like to pull the dog away from it with a few pieces of food left. That's the only time I like the dog to leave food on it, is at the very end of the track. Okay, I want my dog thinking there's more food on that track, and I want them wanting to go back for more. We always want the dog wanting to go back for more, ideally. Okay? So, as the dog is realizing that when I veer off, I get no food. If I stay on the track, I stay on this straight line, I get more food. They're going to be more dedicated to staying on there and getting the food and finding every last piece. Ideally, they're going to slow down. They're going to take their time. One of the things you want to be mindful of is try to keep your dog going slowly. We want to slow them down so that they get every single piece of food. We don't want them trying to turn around thinking that they missed a piece and going back to get it. If they walk past a piece, too bad, so sad, it's gone. Do not turn around. So we want them eating every last piece of food, which means let them go slow, make them take their time. When we get into more advanced tracking, dogs who are going too fast make a lot of mistakes. They'll miss turns, they'll miss articles, they'll make way more mistakes, they have way more errors. And in IGP, we're looking for precision and accuracy over speed. When we talk about military and law enforcement, speed and intensity is more important because when we're tracking a real criminal out in the world, we're not wanting that person to get away and escape. So we want to be able to get to them and find them fast. But in IGP, I'm trying to get a good score. So I want my dog to be as close to perfect as possible. And so there's no points for doing it quickly. My dog gets points for doing it correctly. All right. So when your dog is doing these little puppy tracks, keep them slow, keep them methodical, and try to make sure they get every last bit of food. As your dog is staying more and more dedicated and is searching more diligently to make sure that they try and get every little piece of food, as you're doing these tracks, and ideally, in a perfect world, you want to be doing them like every day. Ideally, you want to do about one track every day. If you can do this every day for their breakfast, you're going to have a tracking machine. All right? But as often as you can. So as your dog gets more proficient at these, what we begin to do is you can start to make your track slightly longer. And you're going to start to space out your food a little bit. And so as you're spacing out your food, you're going to stagger it. Because if you notice when you're walking, your feet travel in two columns, right? Your left foot's on your left side, your right foot's on your right side. And so even though in this early stage, we're really dragging our feet and we're still kind of trenching them into the ground. So we're really just making two straight lines with our feet. We're going to start to space out that food, and what we're going to do is we're going to stagger them. So even though the trenches of our feet are just these two straight lines, you're going to start to place the food as if they are staggered in footsteps in those two trenches. So one where your left foot would be, and one where your right footstep would be. One where your left footstep would be, one where your right footstep would be. And we're going to start to create this pattern for our dog where they're beginning to move their head from the left to the right, to the left to the right. So they're moving their head from where the left footstep would be to where the right footstep would be, from the left footstep would be to the right footstep would be. And just start creating this pattern of footstep to footstep to footstep to footstep. Even though, again, they're just picking up pieces of food off the ground, we're creating muscle memory through this behavior. You're still keeping them on a short leash and teaching them to find the food on their own because, again, this is a hunting exercise for them. This is them learning to search out the food on their own. From there, what we're going to do is we're going to start to not drag our feet entirely. What we are going to start to do is we are going to start to pick up our feet in between each step. So you're going to pick up your feet, but when you put your foot down for your next footstep, you're going to really dig your foot in and dig up a little bit of that dirt, a little bit of that grass, and really dig your footstep in each time you do it. And again, you're going to put your food directly where your footstep is. So now the food is still staggered in those footsteps, but you're actually making footsteps instead of just two columns of odor where your feet are. So you're actually doing footsteps, but you're really digging those footsteps in. You're going to do each of these phases, each of these steps of training Do them for several sessions, like 4, 5, 6, 7 tracks, like each one. Okay? Keep hitting my desk. Sorry. After your dog's doing really good with that, what we start doing is skipping. Every once in a while, we're going to skip a step with the food. So you're still trenching your foot in each step you take, and you're putting food in every single step, except every once in a while you're going to skip a step. And what you're going to do is you're going to keep track of what you're skipping. And what I want you to do is I want you to skip an odd number. So I might always skip my 5th step. So I'll do food for 4 steps and then no food on my 5th. And then I'll do food for 4 steps and then I'll do no food on my 5th. The reason why we do an odd number is so that the step that is skipped, that has no food in it, alternates between our left foot and our right foot. If you did an even number, so if it was every 4th step, then it would always be on the same foot. So if it was your left foot, it would always be the left foot. If it was your right foot, it would always be the right foot. So do that for several days, several tracks. If that's going well, then you do every 3rd foot. And then after that, you're gonna only put food in every 3rd step. And then after that, you're gonna put food in every 5th step. And slowly, your dog is gonna start to have to search the path between each piece of food. And they're gonna realize there is a cheat code that leads them from one piece of food to the next. And that cheat code is your odor. Your odor is what's leading them from one piece of food to the next piece of food, to the next piece of food, to the next piece of food. And the best part about it is all along, they have been being imprinted on this odor. And so it's not going to be hard for them to figure this out as you start to add these skips between your food. But don't be in a rush to go too far too fast. Now, the challenge comes when we start to do turns. And so when you want to start to add your turns in, usually I start to do this around the time we're about food every 3rd step. And what I start to do is start adding in gentle curves. And I might do a serpentine, so a gentle curve to the left and a gentle curve to the right. And usually about this point, I would say my tracks are up to about 30 to 40 feet. So, and then from there, we start to just kind of extend, make those curves a little bit less gentle, space out the food just a little bit more. And each of those things, we're just gonna slowly increase very, very gradually. The whole process of tracking is about being gradual and being deliberate, okay? Now, something we haven't talked about is the concept of articles. So in IGP, you are scored on your dog's ability to follow the track through straight legs and through turns, but you're also scored on your dog's ability to find articles. Articles are pieces or items that have your scent on them. In IGP, they are a 10 centimeter by 3 centimeter by 3 millimeter, I think. I don't know. They're like a piece of wood, right? 3 centimeter by 10 centimeter little piece of wood, piece of leather, and a piece of fabric or carpet, right? Usually it's some type of fabric, French linen or something. Anyways, so you have those 3 items, and they're gonna have your scent on them. So ideally, you want to have them either in your hand or in your pocket or, in your armpit or something. You want it to have your scent on it. You could put it in like your boot, in your sock, whatever, for at least about 30 minutes before you start training with them. Now, separate from your track. You're not going to do this on your track right away. We are going to do this in a separate training session. We're going to teach our dog that when you come across an article, which the article is going to smell like you, when you come across an article, that means to down. Now, in IGP, your dog can indicate any way you want. Indication could be a sit, a down, a stand, or your dog could retrieve it, whatever, right? But the commonly accepted method is to down at the article. And even though all of those methods are accepted, in the illustration in the rulebook, it shows the dog down at the article to show what an ideal picture looks like. So just teach your dog to down. Don't fight it. Just do it. It's fine. So in an ideal picture, you want the dog to down at the article with the article in between the dog's two front legs. The dog shouldn't try to eat the article. The dog shouldn't be messing with the article. The dog shouldn't turn and face you. The dog should remain in line with the direction of the track, and the article should be in between their two front legs. So what we like to do, usually when I'm starting this, is I can start this in a position box. I'll place the article in the position box, have my dog go into the position box. Ideally, before we even start this, your dog should have a really good down command. If your dog doesn't have a really good down command, do that first. That's a whole different conversation. We're not going to go over that. If your dog doesn't know down, figure it out. Or call me. We'll do it together. But your dog should have a good down command. But we do a position box. We put the article at the front of the position box. We have the dog go into the position box, tell them down, and then when they're down, we are dropping food in the position box on the article. So ideally, we're trying to teach the dog to look and focus on the article and not really be looking at us. I like to stand over my dog while I do this, so I'm facing the same direction as my dog, standing over my dog. I'm basically straddled over the top of my dog, and I use both of my hands. So I'll alternate whether I'm using my right hand or my left hand to drop food and just basically drop kibble on that article. The food will bounce away, which is fine. It'll bounce in front of the article, next to the article, under my dog's chest, whatever. But it lands on the article first. So the reason why I do this is I want my dog watching the article to see where the food bounces to. I don't want my dog looking at me. I want my dog looking at the article. I want my dog focused on the article. Now, there's definitely other ways to do that too. This is just a really simple way to kind of start. So we're teaching the dog when you see the article down, okay? So you do that, maybe 5 or 6 pieces of food, and then you tell them free, have them come out of the box, have them go back in, they see the article, tell them down. And ideally what we want to have happen is when they make eye contact or notice that article, you tell them down. Don't tell them down until they kind of see it in a perfect world. The first few repetitions, you might just have to tell them down, and then they go, oh, what's this thing? And then you kind of start feeding them there. That's fine. But we're building up to where they start to associate seeing that article means down. And the best way to do that is when they see it, then we tell them down. So I do a few sessions in the position box. For my dogs, they have a really good down command. They're really, really well acquainted with the position box at this point. And so I don't have to spend a ton of time in the position box before we start to take this out of the position box. So when I do take this out of the position box, I take an exercise to a clean area. And when I say clean area, I'm referring to not grass. I'm referring to either an indoor space with tile, hardwood, a cement floor, a garage. I have a nice training building I use. But I want the articles to be very, very visible. Now, I'm still going to make sure they have my scent on them. Because even though my dog is using their eyes to see the article first, they're still getting their olfactories imprinted, whether they know it or not, right? I love the fact that for our dogs, in most cases, olfactory, which is like their sense of smell, olfactory imprinting is a lot of times a very subconscious, unconscious, passive activity in their brain. I don't want them realizing they're sniffing for something when it's happening. When we're classically conditioning them to have this really positive association with a smell, I don't want them to realize that that's what's happening. And I honestly don't think they do. So, anyways, so we go out to a place where the articles will be very visible. And even though in IGP they only trial with 3 articles, I usually have like 10 or 12 articles. And, the first time I do this with a dog, I can do this with maybe 5, 6, maybe 7 articles, depending on the type of dog I have. My dogs are usually a little psychotic, so I can usually do 5 or 6 at least. They could probably do 70 if they really wanted to. But regardless, if you have a dog who kind of tires pretty easily keep it short. Start with 5 if you want. But what we're going to do is we're going to lay the articles on this really clear surface where it's very easy to see them. And we're going to lay them in a line. And it doesn't have to be like a pristine surface. It doesn't have to be a virgin surface. It doesn't have to be something that no one's walked on. They're not tracking at this time. They're just doing article indications. But we're still going to lay them in a line. And we're going to talk about why we do that later. And this actually kind of gets into how we teach the other method of tracking. So essentially, the other method of tracking I teach starts with this first. And so we teach the position box. We teach, hey, get to the article, you lay down. We take them out to a clean area. We say, hey, look, an article. Article means lay down. And ideally, they should lay down facing the direction of travel. And you're going to have 5 or 6 or 7 articles in a row. They should be spaced out a little bit more than one dog's body length. So maybe 1.5 body lengths, roughly. And so when they get to that article, you're going to feed them. You can drop some food on the article. I don't like to drop a whole lot of food on the article. I'll just kind of have them eat food out of my hand before I pick up the article, while I'm picking up the article, and after I pick up the article. That's the really, really, really important one, because you don't want your dog getting up the moment you pick up that article. You want your dog staying in that down after you pick up the article. So remember, when your dog is down at the article, reward them before you pick up the article, reward them again while you're picking up the article, and reward them again after you've picked up the article while they're in the down. After you've done that, get ready for the next article. Ideally, they're looking forward to the next article. Ideally, they've already made eye contact with it. And you can either give them just what's going to be their tracking command, or you can give them a release to let them get up from the down and then give their tracking command. Whichever one you think is going to be useful or better, whatever you need to do to get them up by that down. Some dogs have really stable downs. You might have to give them a free or a release command to get them up, whatever works. Ideally, we just want to be able to say their tracking command, and they get up and start going to the next article. So they get up, they go to the next article. As soon as they get to the next article, you tell them they're down. And as soon as they're down, you tell them their continuation marker, they're good, their click, whatever. You feed them before you pick up the article, you feed them while you're picking up the article, and you feed them again after you pick up the article. And then you just rinse and repeat for every single one. And like I said, you can do this for as many articles as your dog has the energy to do. My dogs love doing this exercise. It's like their favorite. Daria gets so excited for it. Sometimes, I think she's going to try and bite me. She gets so excited. She's like, just let me go to the next article. I'm like, chill. But again, this portion of the exercise is just a visual exercise. And It's so funny because we were doing this exercise during our tracking club the other day, and Daria was very visually, you could tell she was visually searching for the article, right? Or she wasn't even searching, she was looking at the next article. So she was just eyeballing it and going to it. And you could say she's not tracking, she's not sniffing at all. And so one of my club members asked very poignantly, when is it that she's going to start sniffing? Like, can you teach her to put her nose down instead of like having her face up? And I said, you just have to trust the process, because this is what's going to happen next. So like I said with the food, right? The food, we started to space out. And in the beginning, the dog would just be eating the food. And then over time, the food began to space out to where they had to use the cheat code between each piece of food to find out where the next piece would be. The same thing will happen with the articles. So after we do this exercise on the pavement or the cement or whatever, like I'll do this on the driveway. I like to do this on the driveway because I'll start on the driveway and then I'll have like 5-10 articles. I'll do like 5 of them on the driveway, but they lead into the grass. So that the first 5 are on the pavement and then the next 5 lead into the grass, all in one line. And so now the dog starts to see the articles in the context of the grass. Are they still very visible? Yeah. Are they still really close together? Yeah, absolutely. But then the next time they come out, we're going to start in the grass. And they're all going to be just as close together. And we're going to go one article to the next, to the next. And again, my dog is going to be doing a very visual exercise, and that's fine. Because each time we come out, those articles are going to be a little bit further away. And a little bit further away. And a little bit further away. Until I can't see it anymore. But I know it's out there because when my mom gives me my tracking command, my job is to find an article. And I know there's an article somewhere in front of me. And our dogs naturally rely on their olfactories. They naturally rely on their sense of smell. And it does not take any teaching from us when we ask them to find something, which this whole exercise has been about go to the article and down. When I give her that command, her job is to go to the article. And she goes, my job is to go to the article, but I don't see it. But you told me to go to the article, which means I know it's out here. I have to find it. And she's going to do what comes naturally. And she's going to start sniffing. And that's when the miracle happens. And she's going to start tracking because the track smells exactly like those articles smell. And the beauty of this, the reason, honestly, the biggest reason why I started switching to this, and this is actually, I know that there are other big name trainers who train this way. I did not inherently learn from them. I started doing this because I live here in North Carolina, and we are plagued with fire ants in the summer. And it is summertime right now. It is like 96 degrees outside, and there are fire ants everywhere. And as soon as you put a piece of food on the ground, it is covered in fire ants. And our dogs were out there picking up food, tracking, and getting fire ants biting their tongues. So we had to find another method. And it's actually working really well. So basically, it's taught our dogs to search for the article, and the track is the cheat code to the article. When you get to the article, you get rewarded. And quite honestly, so I have 2 dogs that I'm doing tracking with. Daria is my younger dog. Now, granted, younger, I mean like she's about to be 4. Medic is my older dog. He's a little over 5. Medic started tracking when he was a baby, like itty bitty. Daria, I put off quite long, so she's still early in her tracking life. But she's starting with this method, with the article method. And we just got to the point where she's having to use her nose to get from one article to the next. And it was hilarious because again, my tracking club member was like, when is she going to start sniffing the ground? And it was like literally like right after they said that, the next repetition, you saw her go, I can't see it, and you saw her nose go to the ground. Like, I'm like, there it is. Just like that. That's the process. So that's essentially how we start tracking for IGP. Now, like I said, for IGP tracking, level 1 is 300 paces. You, as your dog's handler, you will lay your own track. For level 2s and 3s, a certified track layer selected by the trial host will lay the track for your dog. And the tracks are longer with more turns, but the longest track is 600 paces. So not crazy long, not super impossible. It's totally doable, but it takes time. It takes practice. Don't rush the process. Take the time in the beginning. Getting from 50 feet to 600 feet is not hard. Getting from 10 feet to 50 feet is hard. Just remember that. But, okay. That is my 2 cents about tracking. Not many people like tracking. Some of the reasons why: if you want primo tracking land time, the best time to track is early in the morning. The reason is the way that odor works. 1, it sticks better to wet surfaces. So it, like in the morning when the grass has dew on it, the odor is going to stick better, which means there's going to be more odor where you walked, which means your dog is going to have an easier time following the track. The other issue is heat will make the odor evaporate kind of off of that track more, so it's going to be harder for your dog to track once the day gets hot. Also, your dog is going to get tired tracking. Tracking is a very mentally and physically demanding activity for your dog. So tracking early in the morning is the best recommendation. I know I am not a morning person, which is why I struggle so much with tracking, because I do not want to get up and go tracking at 7, 8 o'clock in the morning. I want to be sleeping with my dogs, snuggling. That's the best time for me, but I do it at least once a week. When you're first doing your foundations, ideally you want to do it like every day. Even if it's just for a few weeks, get out there every day, establish a really good foundation, and then you can start to kind of taper it off and do it like a little less frequently. Especially teaching your article indication, you don't have to do that in the morning. You can do that any time of day. But once you start like actually laying your tracks and having them sniffing the tracks on the ground, you're going to want to do those in the morning when they first get started, just to give them a little bit more success. You'll also notice like you want to track ideally on as flat of a surface to start. It's going to be easiest for the dog and for you to understand where and how your dog is going to be successful. Odor moves in some interesting ways. Like if you track on a hill, odor will roll down the hill. So the field that I use most often, there's this one place where like there's this hillside, and I'll track along the side of the hill for one of the segments of my track. And every time my dog will be like a few feet down the hill from the actual track, and it's because he's following the odor. There's also some other areas of the field that have these like divots, and the odor will pool into divots. So think of it as like, I don't know, mist that settles into low spots. Also think about, wind. If you go out on like a breezy day or a windy day, or if the wind is blowing in a certain direction, that's going to blow the odor in a certain direction. So if you notice that your dog is starting to struggle one way or another, maybe your dog's having a bad day, maybe. But also, maybe the wind is blowing the odor that way, right? Generally, when you lay a track, especially if you're generally just going in one direction, you're not going to like turn around and come back or anything like that. You want to lay your track with the wind at your back. Track with the wind at your back, right? Because if you're tracking with the wind at your face, all of the odor from your track when you get started is going to be blowing at your dog, and your dog's going to get confused. So track with the wind at your back. But that's just some tips to get you started as best I can do in a short little podcast episode. Man, like if you really want to get into tracking, come out and practice. We meet every week on Sunday at 8 a.m. Get up, get your shoes on, come on out, bring your tracking articles and your long line. We have tracking flags for free. We'll give those to you, don't worry. But join us out here at Airborne Canine Dog Training for our tracking club, and we would love to have you. If you are interested in more working dog tracking or variable surface tracking or hard surface tracking, there are plenty of resources out there for you. And just reach out to me. I'll be happy to point you in those directions as well. I am not an expert on those, but I can definitely point you in the right direction. Tracking is a great foundation to start before you get into doing things like area searches. So if you are looking to do things like search and rescue, start with tracking. Start with a tracking foundation, teach everything else after. Okay? Cool. All right, well, that's my 2 cents. Have fun, good luck, and let us know how you did. Send us your videos of your tracks. I would love to see them. Okay? Have fun. Enjoy your day with your dog. Okay, bye.